This is Justin Johnston, Executive Director of the Community of Hope Health Clinic in Pelham, Alabama. Uh, Coming to you live for me here for the second video podcast of the Community of Hope Health Clinic, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're doing. Of course, in the last episode, episode one, I gave you a brief history of the clinic. Today, I want to talk about a few things, but before I get started, of course, I want to mention a few links that are, if you're watching the video, that are above my head. If not, I can read them out for you if you're somehow getting the audio of this only. You can always reach us or learn more about us by going to www.communityofhopeclinic.com. Our Facebook is Community of Hope Health Clinic. That's facebook.com/Community of Hope Health Clinic. And our Instagram is instagram.com/CHHC _ Or if you have the app, you can just look us up at CHHC _ Shelby Co. So today we're talking a little bit about volunteering, and I've got a few guests that I'd like to introduce everybody to here in a minute. But before we get started with that, I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit. So this is not my first nonprofit to work with. My first nonprofit that I worked with was the Black Warrior Council and the Boy Scouts down in Tuscaloosa. And I learned really quick that you cannot do anything in the nonprofit world without your volunteers. The volunteers are the lifeblood of whatever organization you're working for. So with the Community of Hope, we have different levels of volunteers. So we have probably the one that people don't see the most is our board of directors. And our board of directors right now is comprised, I believe, of 12 individuals from all different aspects of the business sector here in Shelby County. We've got medical providers, we've got clergy, we've got business leaders, we've got Hispanic business leaders. We've got retired professionals who have some corporate ties. We have some ties to UAB. And so that is something that's very important. A lot of times these people go unnoticed because they're the ones that are not working with the day-to-day aspects of the clinic. They're working on policy. They're working on making sure that we are doing what we need to do in order to run a clinic efficiently, but also under strict rules and guidelines to make sure that we are a properly ordered and working nonprofit. And board of directors, they go, just about every nonprofit. I sit on a few boards myself. And so, we're there just as a check and balance system. The second group I would say is probably our providers. So our providers there are MDs, there are DOs, there are PAs, there are nurse practitioners, there are physical therapists, there are dermatologists, our OBs, whoever's working for us. We need these professional certificates. We need these people with those terminal degrees in healthcare in order to be able to see patients. Because if we didn't have them, then we wouldn't be able to see patients. And a lot of times people don't realize this, but and if you're a nurse practitioner, if you're a physician assistant here in the state of Alabama, you have to have a collaborator. So not only do we have MDs and DOs that work for us that volunteer seeing patients, they're also volunteering to collaborate and oversee the nurse practitioners and PAs that we have here. So it's very important, a very important aspect. And then finally, we have our volunteers, from our general volunteers to our triage, our RNs, our LPNs, our nursing students, our CRTs, our CNAs, our interpreters. I mean, we have people that come in and all they do is data entry for us. I mean, these people are what make the clinic work. If we weren't for these volunteers, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So it's very important to us. We'll probably talk about this again in a couple months because usually volunteer week is sometime in April. It's right before our fundraiser. And I'm going to do my best this year to kind of highlight our volunteers and do something a little special for them. Because like I said, my job would not exist, and neither would any of the paid staff here at the Community of Hope Health Clinic. So one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to highlight something from one of the organizations we're members of. The organization I'm talking about is the National Association of Free and Charitable Clinics, and so we're a newer entity with them. I attended my first conference or symposium with them back in the fall. Planning on doing it again this coming fall. And they had a blog that was written back in April of 2022, and I will make sure that I include this on the video description if you want to go back and read it. But really, I look at the first line of this, or first paragraph of this, and it really hits home. It says volunteers play a vital role in the sustainment, growth, and health of communities across the country. This is especially true when it comes to health equity and accessibility. Whether they're a medical volunteer or a non-medical volunteer, a volunteer nurse or a student, individuals commit their valuable time and energy to support their communities are the backbone of our work at NASC and free and charitable clinics and pharmacies throughout the United States. And that's a great summary. And so, with that said, I do have a video. I had a call earlier this week with uh, our volunteer coordinators who are both volunteer positions, and we discussed uh, the just the ins and outs of what it's like to volunteer here at the Community Folk Health Clinic. So I hope you enjoy this. I visited here today by Alma Quintana and Jorge Vargas. Both these individuals are working with us behind the scenes with our volunteer recruitment, volunteer training, volunteer just pretty much everything to do with it. Alma has been with us, I guess, going on about 2 years now as our volunteer coordinator. And she was at our old space, and Jorge has been with us for, I guess, about the last 6 months or so, working with us maybe a little bit longer than that. So if you don't mind, just let everybody know exactly how you got involved with the clinic and what your experiences have been. So Alma, why don't you start off?
Right. Well, I'm the volunteer coordinator, almost 2 years, but I've been with the clinic for about 4 years. I'm going on to my half year now. So I became part of the clinic as just an interpreter. I knew about the clinic from a provider actually that was with the clinic. From there, I got in contact with the old volunteer coordinator at that time, and I found out that we actually went to high school together. So he introduced me to Johnston, to Maria, and the whole staff that we had back then. And I really enjoyed working with all the providers, with all the other volunteers. And now I have really enjoyed my time as a volunteer coordinator since I've been able to connect with all of the volunteers, not just with the interpreters like I used to.
Jorge, you want to?
Yes, as Justin said, I'm right now the volunteer trainer. I'm a medical doctor from Mexico, and since I got here, I was looking for something to volunteer with and help my community, which is really important for me. And I found out the clinic, and since I started there as an interpreter, I just fell in love with the clinic since the first time I was there, and I wanted to do more and more. I wanted to share my medical knowledge also with the volunteers, and I did also triage and interpreting. And just
Currently, how many volunteers would you say we have?
So right now we have a little bit of 150 volunteers that, they get our emails every week. They are up to date with all our information. On a regular basis, we have over 45 volunteers that actually we get to see on a regular basis. They come more than we used to have when we first started.
And that doesn't include our providers. So when you throw in our providers, we got another 25 or so of them. So we're actually looking at anywhere from 70 to 75 volunteers on a monthly basis who are coming in. So what would you say are opportunities out there for volunteering at the clinic?
Not only do we give the opportunity for students and, just regular people to give back to their community, we're giving them experiences that they won't be able to have in many other clinic settings, the big hospitals or anything. We actually give them hand-on experience. Many of the volunteers that I've talked to, they're like, I never thought, you have to apply for certain medications. I never thought this many people needed actual health care that they couldn't get. they go to, you know, medical schools, nursing schools, knowing more than they actually knew, you know, and they actually get to know the community. They get to know the patients get to know them. They build relationships with the patients, you know. Sometimes I'd be walking on the street and then, you know, I'll see a patient from the clinic and they know me and they are so happy to see me when I come in clinic. You know, we also get to give them a lot of skills they didn't have before. We are able to train a lot of our general volunteers in triage training. So, you know, they also get out of the door with that experience. There's always extra work. Now with our mobile unit clinic, you know, they're able to enjoy being in there. So there's just many things that we've been able to bring back to, you know, to them and actually expand their knowledge and not just kind of have to stay in one position and just be there for the rest of their time being with us. And they have really enjoyed it.
What other positions are we currently recruiting for, and that we are always having to a turnover because of class schedules with our students and things like that?
Well, the three biggest categories we have for volunteers is the general volunteer, which is basically helping us with the reception, receiving the patients and giving like the whole chart in order. And also we have the interpreters, which is really important, especially because most of our providers, they are now Spanish speakers, and most of our patients are Spanish speakers. So interpreters, I think, is one of the biggest or the most important part of it. And then we also have the triage the triage volunteers, which is just basically having the vitals first and then asking the first like questions to the patients before going to the providers. And well, hopefully we can expand also later on with more categories for volunteers, but this is the main three we have right now.
Spanish, I would agree, is probably our biggest deal. I know that when I started, we were about 43% Hispanic, which probably 90% of those people are ESL or they don't speak English at all, which I know Alma, you know, she's had family and friends who have come to the clinic, so she can attest to that. And Jorge, being from Mexico, you know, I know that you've seen a lot of that. So I'm hoping that since we've gone from about 43% to 70%, you know, that's definitely something that we're looking for. So now with that said, we're not just going to sit there and take volunteers and say, here you go do whatever you want to. So, you know, now before COVID, we were running trainings at least twice a year. And I know that that's something that we would like to incorporate. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what kind of training plan we're looking for our volunteers in the future, not only those who are coming in new, but also those who are established volunteers, to make sure that they're up to date with what we're doing at the clinic.
Well, we have the training for the new volunteers, which we're including, like as I mentioned, the younger volunteers, the triage volunteers, and the interpreter volunteers. And we're also, I'm working on this plan for as a refresher or a training for the volunteers. Like you said, we already have to train them about like important topics as checking the blood pressure manually, the most common medications we have in the clinic, or the most common diagnoses we have in the clinic, like hypertension and diabetes. Is really important for the volunteers to get to know this diseases and know how to treat them as well. And I think it's really important for them to be this training. As Alma was saying, most of our volunteers are like pre-medical students or nursing students, and this will be also a good training or skills to get in this clinic too.
And then, like Jorge said, we're going to try to do like a different module, you know, 8 to 10 times a year, and then maybe do like a huge training that goes with school semesters, because a lot of our turnover happens at that time with our volunteers. So,
you know, the clinic is a good opportunity for you to learn how to be in a community and helping the patients, and it's really important to start building that since the beginning of your career. And well, I think the clinic has a lot of opportunities to grow on the volunteers and the skills you can get, and also with
yeah. So, you know, I am bilingual, so just going from one language to the next, it was very, very easy. My vocabulary, I thought it was great. So I still was very nervous to kind of start in interpreting, because I mean, I hadn't interpreted for nobody other than my parents. So, you know, I think my biggest shock was how much different the Spanish language is. Because I mean, I feel like as Spanish speakers, we know that, but we're never in that type of experience. So, you know, we know that people from different regions speak differently, but actually having to do that day to day, it was something to get used to it for sure. Because not only do you have to learn, you know, all the medical terminology, you also have to learn the words they use, the slang they use, to be able to actually improve the service that you're providing. Because you know, being at this clinic as a nonprofit, we deal with a community, you know, that some of them use a lot of slang. So I can't come in here with, you know, all of the terminology I know, because maybe they won't understand. So I think just getting used to the way they speak, the vocabulary they use, and combine that with the medical terminology and finding ways to explain to the patient so they could actually understand me, you know, it has improved a lot. Now I get to actually communicate with a lot of my patients. And I have gotten the comment a lot of like, oh, are you from my country? And I'm just like, no. And they're like, then how do you understand me? And I'm like, oh, because, you know, I actually have to have the experience here to where I get to know a lot of people from the region that you're from, and I can actually build my vocabulary because of that. So it's been really nice getting to learn that you know, that it's not just interpreting and the medical terminology, but I had to also add some slang here and there to actually be able to have the great communications that we do with the provider and the patient.
And I think
Yeah.
that's important, but I think that that's kind of universal when it comes to somebody who's first coming to a medical clinic, specifically a medical clinic for the underserved and undershired. And we're talking about people who don't have access to these services. And
Yeah.
so because they don't have access to these services, you know, a lot of times they don't know the questions to ask. They don't know what to say, and because they're experiencing a lot of stuff for the first time as well. And so I think whether it's a patient or it's a triage person or it's a, you know, somebody that's working up front or somebody that's dealing with medical records and never dealt with HIPAA before, I think this is all very important, and this is all skills that you can learn, and that you know, as those people who are interested in volunteering with the Community of Hope, you can learn with Alma, you can learn with Jorge, different ways. So I just want to say thank you both for sitting on this call with me today.
Mhm.
But you know what you do is very important for us, and then our volunteers are our most important part, and they're our lifeblood because we have six paid employees at the clinic, and everything else is volunteer based. And so if you have any questions and you want to volunteer, you can always reach Alma's volunteer community of hope clinic.com, or Jorge, he's volunteer trainer community of hope clinic.com. Maria couldn't be with us tonight, but if you're a provider, if you're a physical therapist, optometrist, uh, general primary care, OB, mental health counseling, you can always contact Maria as well. She's doing all of our vetting as well for that, and her email is maria@communityofhopeclinic.com. So thank you all very much. We appreciate it, and that's about it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation that I had with Alma Quintana and Jorge Vargas, who are both volunteer coordinators and the volunteer trainer. And the great thing about these two is they have a heart for this, and that's what we hope that all of our volunteers have have for this clinic. We want people who are coming in who, when they volunteer at the clinic, they are doing it because it's something they enjoy doing. They enjoy helping out, and you know, I hope that if you were to come and interact not only with myself, but interact with Jorge, Alma, the rest of the staff, Maria, and all them, that you would leave here thinking this was a worthwhile cause, because that's always our goal for our volunteers. And so to really uh, kind of summarize it, I'm going to go back to that blog that I mentioned before from the NAFC, and it says why you should volunteer with your local clinic or pharmacy. The spirit of volunteerism and giving back is an enriching experience, one that is exemplified in our member organizations throughout the country. In the United States today, there are over 1,400 free and charitable clinics and pharmacies fighting to provide their patients with the care they need and deserve. Each year, our members rely on volunteer support, care, and compassion to assist their uninsured and underinsured neighbors. Volunteering is truly a fulfilling experience. As a volunteer, you'll gain important life experience that helps support your community and neighbors and provides an opportunity for personal growth. Volunteering can also often help with feelings of burnout, giving you renewed energy after a fulfilling experience of giving back. Healthcare professionals can gain clinical experience in a setting that focuses on a patient and helps people live healthier lives. From non-medical volunteers to certified healthcare professionals, our clinics and pharmacies are always looking for new ways to use the talents and expertise of our volunteers who want to share their time. So, I mean, that to me, that's a great way to end this podcast. And I just want to say that if you would like to volunteer, you can always contact me. My name is Justin. I'm the executive director. My email is justin@communityofhopeclinic.com. Or if you want to talk to somebody else about the possibility of volunteering as a interpreter, triage, just a general volunteer, you can always email Alma at volunteer@communityofhopeclinic.com or Jorge at volunteertrainer@communityofhopeclinic.com. One last thing is if you're a provider and you would like to volunteer, whether it's for physical therapy, primary care, or some other specialty, I would ask that you would either reach out to myself or reach out to Maria Fernanda Vidal, who is our operations director. Like I said, mine is Justin at communityofhopeclinic.com, and Maria's is Maria at communityofhopeclinic.com. At the end of this video, I'm going to post a few things about some upcoming announcements and events that we have going. Also, if you'd like to give, but you don't want to volunteer, but you'd like to give, you can always subscribe to this channel. You can always give to our PayPal or Square account, which I will put in the description. And we just appreciate all that you're doing with us as far as following us, watching these videos, and learning more about the Community of Hope Health Clinic. Once again, if you are a member of the community and would like to be featured on this podcast, I would love to be able to talk to you about it. I'm planning on having some other guests in the future from the clinic, but I'd love to be able to talk to some of our partners about how we integrate with them and how what kind of disparities we have, disparities we have as far as being able to fill in the gap where we need to. So thank you very much. God bless you. And we'll see you next time.